Yeah.
Let's bring in political analyst Mark Halperin now to talk more about the pressure building on Attorney General Merrick Garland in the White House. Mark, great to see you as always.
Good to see you, John. And we may have some breaking news that will invoke Oprah's line. You get a special counsel, and you get a special counsel, and you get a special counsel.
Yeah, tell us about this development with Mike Pence.
Yeah, so CNN is reporting in what seems to be a relatively well-sourced report that Mike Pence, having denied that he had any classified documents, or as we like to say, documents with classified markings, that his lawyer has found some at his home. And of course, this question has been raised, including on deep background by some Biden allies, which is go ahead and check the Obama closet, the Clinton closet, the Bush closet, and you'll find that somehow classified documents, or as we like to say, documents with classified markings, end up in the private possession of folks. Remember, part of the story here for both President Bush, President Trump, and President Biden is there is rampant overclassification. You might see a New York Times story printed out, someone scrawls something on it, and then that gets slapped as classified. Not the highest level of classification, but nonetheless a document that would be considered classified. And so we don't know yet if the CNN report is true. We don't know, but it wouldn't be surprising. We don't know what's in, as CNN says, the Pence documents. But this is going to turn the story in a different direction, because you'll certainly hear the Biden people say, as we quote another famous historical line, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made by the Biden camp, and somehow he ended up with a bunch of classified documents. Apparently Mike Pence did the same thing under different circumstances, Donald Trump. And so right now the Attorney General is going to face a choice. I don't know, given that Mike Pence is not a declared presidential candidate, maybe he can see fit to not yet naming another special counsel. But at some point, Washington may well run out of lawyers because everybody's going to have their own special counsel.
I'm going to go apply to law school, Mark. I'll be right back at this pace.
Right. Do the 2-year plan, because you'll be needed.
Yes, I'm gonna go to night school. I'll do it 24 anyway. Let's talk. We'll set that aside for a second. That's certainly a massive development. Possibly Vice President Mike Pence had classified documents. Of course, people make a distinction between the vice president and the president. I think this also puts more emphasis on what specifically those documents that were marked classified contain, and will we get into all that and what we know. So let's focus back on Merrick Garland also and the way he's handled this Biden situation versus President Trump. And here is the Attorney General.
We do not have different rules for Democrats or Republicans, different rules for the powerful or the powerless, different rules for the rich or for the poor. We apply the facts and the law in each case in a neutral, nonpartisan manner. That is what we always do.
He can say that, and it may very well be true in the vast majority of cases that they handle, but it doesn't look like that in this case. And Mark, what can you tell us about what you're hearing from your sources about the heat being turned up on Merrick Garland?
Well, look, the Biden folks have handled this in a way, whatever the underlying facts, whatever's in those documents, whether there's a conspiracy, whether Joe Biden took them to help his son's businesses, but you can go the most extreme conspiracy theories you want. Whatever the facts, it is the case that the administration has tried to not embarrass the Justice Department, but they failed. And there are people within the Justice Department who are telling reporters that they're not happy with the way things are going, that their attempts to appear to be fair are being undermined by some of the actions taken by the Biden lawyers, both the White House lawyers and President Biden's personal lawyers. And there's no doubt that conservatives forevermore, no matter how these two cases resolve, will have the talking point to say Mar-a-Lago was raided and his lawyers were kept out of the room, and Joe Biden's lawyers got to do their own initial search and then got to be present for a friendly search. And the Attorney General can say there's a reason for that difference.
And we all know which kind of treatment we would rather have.
Yes.
Right.
And they're still kind of controlling the narrative. I mean, we just heard from Rosen, they're not going to go on camera. They say they're going to be transparent, Mark, but they're saying, well, we'll just do some, we'll have the spokesperson for the council do this. So they're still adding another layer. It feels like these lawyers have been very stellar, in protecting their client, AKA the president. But we do want to call into question some things that Miranda Devine was reporting on in the New York Post, because basically she was reporting this, that, they're panicking. Biden Biden's panicking, an astonishing fifth trove here. Ron Klain, as we've been reporting here on Newsmax, that he's bailing out, and someone at the White House throwing his trusted longtime executive assistant Kathy Chung under the bus. Logan Raddick's tracking that story. He's live at the Pentagon with more on Kathy Chung. But now that we're seeing Pence, now that we're seeing, he had a classified, Trump has classified, the big question I want to get from you and what you're hearing here, there's a lot of questions of years where these were missing, and where is the link to possibly his son's work with Burisma, with China, influence peddling? It seems like out of everyone who may have had some classified documents, these may be a much bigger issue when it comes to Joe Biden and his no regrets, statements about this.
Right. Well, look, I predict that the no regrets is going to be a thing of the past within 48 hours. I think the pressure is being built on the president to say more about taking personal responsibility, regardless of the underlying facts. There's speculation about connections to Hunter. Can't rule it in, can't rule it out. But it's those Senate documents that are more of a mystery in some ways. It's relatively easy, as a matter of practice, for a president or a vice president to get and keep classified documents. Much harder for a senator. And in the end, whether this was all done by the staff, whether this was done by Joe Biden on purpose, somewhere in between, the buck has to stop with him. He's the elected official. He's the one responsible for those documents. And whether he knew they were in his possession or not, we don't know. One of the things that happened on that briefing that you talked to James Rosen about was the spokesman was asked, previously when the documents were found at Joe Biden's office, he said, I didn't know they were there. That was a surprise to me. The spokesman would not repeat that claim that Joe Biden was surprised regarding the documents found in his home. Now, maybe that's just part of they don't say much of anything on those calls, or maybe there's some meaning there, and that's getting a lot of scrutiny. And as John said, I think it's really the most important thing. It does matter what's in these documents. Is it a New York Times story printed out with some handwriting on it, or is it really important secrets, and secrets that might have had some utility for someone else besides Joe Biden? That's going to tell a lot of the story here.
Indeed. Mark Halperin, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you both. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, coming